of 60 Seconds of Seminary. You guys, I am super ecstatic. I got my girl Leah here with me.
Hey.
This is my good friend, and this is a super special episode because I am going to be interviewing her from some of the questions that you all sent in about why she decided to renounce her former sorority after coming into a true and full relationship with Christ. So y'all ready to dive in? Let's do it. Let's do it. So first, I want to just start with, you sharing with us who you are, a little bit of your background, how you came to Christ.
So I am a PK. I grew up in the church, under the church. Very guided, and, had my time to figure out who God was for myself, and now walking in that true calling. I'm an evangelist, and that's who I am in life. For me, that's what's first for me. And me and Stephanie, we actually met in seminary.
Right. Yes.
It's a little bit about me.
Okay. Awesome. So now we're gonna dive in a little deeper.
Okay.
Tell us kind of the backstory to what led you to decide to pledge in the first place. You said you're PK, you grew up under the church. How in the world did you get to a place where you decided, I'm going to pledge? What's that backstory like?
That backstory was the seeds that were sown while I was in high school. High school, Delta Gyms, and seeing figures that you may have been inspired by being attached to these organizations, and then eventually getting into the atmosphere and feeling what that felt like. And I think it also stemmed from a point of wanting to be accepted, wanting to be more, trying to find a label to figure out who I was.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And so what do you feel like, let me not get ahead of myself. What was it like, for something that you obviously admired at one point to finally cross over into that lifestyle? Like, what was that like?
So before the lifestyle occurred, it was kind of like seeing glimpses, and it's like a trial period. Like, no one tells you this, but it's like you submerge yourself into that atmosphere before you actually cross over to it. So your mind is actually being, shaped, molded into, this is what it'll be like once you get there. But what they don't tell you is that's not what it's like when you get there. So it took a lot of trying to prove myself to people before I could even have the opportunity to become a part of this organization. And once I actually became a part, is when I felt everything that I wish I would have felt before in my interest of it.
Wow. Okay, so it wasn't until you kind of actually got into the organization that a lot of things you couldn't have even thought about or imagined.
Yeah, absolutely.
Started to actually materialize.
Yeah, and there were some red flags.
Okay.
There were some red flags, especially being a PK. I was reading up on stuff, and a lot of people were like, oh, they serve Minerva or other gods and different things like that, and I was like, what? But because my mind was already so jaded and conditioned to look at it in a certain light, those things that probably should have mattered to me most were minimized, and they were made small.
That's good.
And to be founded on Christian principles, you would think that was one thing.
A big red flag for you.
Yeah, it would be, and also for them to over explain in that area and give you more information to why it's not. But it's actually never talked about.
Wow.
Like, it's not.
Okay. So you said there was definitely some red flags, but even with seeing those red flags, like, what made you decide? Like, what was that driving force that was like, you know what, just forget it. I'm going to go ahead and, make this decision?
100%. If I'm being real, popularity, status, access, pride, it made you feel good about yourself. And that's the space where, going back to the text in First Timothy, giving over, people leaving the faith, giving over to seducing spirits.
Mm-hmm.
It's a seducing spirit.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was the defining moment of, getting into that lifestyle and, receiving all of what you really initially came into it for, the popularity, the status, all of that, actually, having the benefit of that. What then was it that made you say, I can't do this? Like, was there like a breaking point? Like, what was it that made you start to, chip away at your decision to stay committed into that organization?
So I did the one thing that people who enter in toxic relationships do,
Mm-hmm.
and that's stay in a situation when you know you're not supposed to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually crossed, and I was hollow. I was
Mm-hmm.
empty. And in my particular case, I pledged at the sake of the Holy Spirit and my sensitivity to it. And so when I came out of, crossing the burning sands, that emptiness and hollowness and insecurity and unaware of who I was, if I didn't know before I tried to get the label, now I really don't know,
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. And I tried to commit suicide for the second time in my life.
Wow. Once you got into the place where you wanted to be in, with the status, popular, all that, you still wanted to commit suicide.
Yeah, it was actually more overwhelming and more just potent than I had felt, because I was consistently dealing with mental health.
Mm-hmm.
But afterwards, it was like, yeah.
Wow. And is there anything that you saw in the organization that was like blatantly sacrilegious or like blatantly for those who may not know what takes place?
Yeah.